Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Very good. No, that's absolutely fine.
And Neil, before, kind of just to guide the conversation when we get started, I think, so obviously you all had this launch plan because Vern had that call set for earlier this week. What was the plan? I mean, before the coaches organization said, yes, we're interested in sort of, revisiting this and taking this on as an initiative, what was the plan for admin? Because we have sort of our set plan. This is something additional. So I want to make sure after this call, after we kind of hear what the admin roles are. I mean, I don't know if Vern's team was planning to handle a lot of it or how it was going to be handled prior to our team coming on board, but I need to get clarity around that because definitely. That's going to determine what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. And knowing Vern as I do, that you'll have had a day in marathon, which sounds like, this is great. We need to, drive this forward. And by the way, Scaleup coaches team, can you actually get more involved in this now and have it as a priority? Yeah, well, we can look at it. And then, Vern, what is the detailed thinking behind this? Who's going to do what by when? And that's when you get a pregnant pause. And the actual, it'll just happen, Neil. A bit like on the call about 12 days ago when we were planning the webinar, I said, I don't need any slides. I'll just be fine. I'll just do it. And then full well he's going to need slides. So proactively you send him some slides and the detail he needs. And then, oh, by the way, have you got this to hand? So just so I'm clear, Kristen, when you talked about Vern's team, who would you call out being in Vern's team?
I mean, Mike Davies,
yes.
Cameron. I mean, I don't know what he's having Cameron do. I just know, I had said to the team, because now he's starting to send Carolyn stuff to do in HubSpot and forms need to be revised. And like this call with you is our first, we're getting up to speed. We want to make sure we can market it appropriately and other things, but we have to determine what makes sense for our team with everything else that everybody's doing. Suddenly we're not, taking all this on just because we agreed to have some partnerships. So
exactly. So the truth of it is there is right now no real detailed plan in terms of from the operational thing. If you think about it, all I am is an enthusiastic volunteer. So just the fact that we launched in London in 2018 or whenever we did that, and I've been working with Vern literally on it pretty much ever since. But that's been really sort of drawing out the presentations, drawing out best practice, drawing out the city leader agreements, getting all of this sort of checklists in place. But the detail around what happens when, like on Wednesday night, people start signing up to join the program. What on earth, what's their customer journey look like? No one's even envisaged what that journey looks like from somebody coming off a webinar, then going on leads. So we've seen some leads just in the last few days, people thinking that they've subscribed to Vancouver, actually they're based in Ireland. We've seen other people who are based in London disappearing into Nebraska. There's all sorts of, just operational things that haven't been thought through yet. And
on that point, Neil, Mike sent that email this morning. I don't think he's really aware. I was actually in another thread with just Vern and Mike saying, I'll look into it, but I didn't set that up. I could kind of see what might be happening, but that he misspoke when he said, I'll be correcting this issue.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be, but I don't know.
So top level is this. In about November time, it became really clear that this thing needed some more structure and ultimately needed a resource in somewhere that was going to be eating, living and breathing the 20,000 Scaleups. That's what they do. So what has gone into the city leader agreement now is there are some royalties that are for Vern and Vern's organization, but there are also, I think, $2,500 per organization that is involved in 20,000 Scaleups that go towards the scaling up coaches community, which is then designed, I think, to fund a COO and whatever administrative might be needed in the future. So that's kind of, I can only assume, Learn's never said this to me, but that he hasn't got, a whole raft of money sitting somewhere in terms of his working capital that can then fund those sort of people. So he's kind of saying, right, well, we need to fund that out of this initiative. I don't know if he's had that conversation with you, Christian.
I mean, we've talked about putting in a COO for the organization as a whole, but it had nothing to do with 20,000. It was irrelevant. Like that was pre the conversation in January. So, again, my question is, I mean, my assumption was that this was going to launch with or without, as it stood alone. And as of January 11th, or whenever we sort of agreed to say, hey, let's make this an initiative, that was when we came on board. So I just wasn't sure, if we had said, no, we're definitely not interested in that. I mean, what would the initiative be doing as far as admin? I guess that's kind of the disconnect a little bit.
It is a huge disconnect. And then again, I've been able to have the bandwidth, to do it so far, but definitely not anymore.
And I was saying that to Carolyn. I mean, yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I knew the last we had talked, that was part of the conversation, was you were like, I mean, if I'm running it and have to bring on a resource, then you were like, meaning you were going to, this was, 18 months ago, whenever John and I were talking, just as far as like, so it definitely, I mean, it needs, in my opinion, depending on, it's going to need at least a part-time resource that's going to manage that piece. And we don't have that on our team right now. I mean, we're looking to hire a concierge, but like that wasn't on our radar, and we've already started interviewing candidates. So I think I need to have a conversation with Vern on Monday around, I don't know if his team can, I mean, my team can't take all of it on indefinitely. So he's going to have to either share resources until we sort this all out, or we have to figure out a plan. Because my other concern was, I know, you and some of these other, like Mark Fenner, some of these other City Point people have admin teams, but some of our coaches are just like by themselves. And I don't want them to start leveraging the team as their admin resource. They need to, invest in that. So, okay, that's good background. That was kind of my question around where that had landed.
What time do you have that call with Vern on Monday?
I'll bring it up on council call. I'll just say one of the talking points is
So I think at some stage, the three of us, or maybe even Daniel, because of his fault, we'll just need to make sure we've got that sort of their clarity. Because again, with Vern being the big picture thinker, this makes sense. We can just do all this, and that's all fits together. And then, but the detail is then in terms of I've got, as we saw on Wednesday, a raft of leads coming in, and we need to be in a position. I think just first up, Carolyn, just getting clarity from a number of areas. One, what is the role of Mike and in all of this, and Mike Davis, and what does he control in HubSpot? Cameron, and again, this is where is again another sort of, I've got no idea. There's no scorecard or anything like that for Cameron. About does he have to go and update the website or stuff like that? He's just an enthusiastic volunteer as well, I would imagine. So at some stage, we've got to move from a team of enthusiastic volunteers to a properly structured organization, because we're going to have in the next 4 to 8 weeks, up to we've got 20 cities, 100 odd organizations that are going to be coming onto this program. We've then got to figure out commercially, where does the royalties go? How does the royalties work? So if, do they get paid after a coach is set up and has got some payment themselves for a particular cohort? Where is it? And I had this conversation with Eugene last night, because he kind of thought that it would be the scaling up coaching organizations that are doing all the billing. I said, I don't think that's going to work. I think it would be the coach would do the billing, and then at some stage there would be a way of setting up on HubSpot that each organization that is a 20,000 Scaleups participating company will then have a flag that they'll need to be invoiced for royalty fees. And then we need to split out the royalty fees that will go to Vern and the royalty fees that go to the scaling up coaching organization. So that needs figuring out. And then how do you then get the payment to align today? So that needs figuring out. And then how do you make sure that HubSpot is segmented so that it's be clearer that it's a 20,000 scale-ups company, which region is it in? How does a coach can a coach update it or see the details around that? So, these are just things that don't even think been really thought out so far or considered.
And a couple things on that, Neil. So just for Mike has seemed from my recent conversations with him kind of out of the loop, like he wasn't really involved in this. So, I think that was one of the reasons why he didn't understand when he sent that email back this morning. He just doesn't know, right? Yeah. But I worked with Mike. He's a great guy. He came in as Vernon's event person, but I don't think it's in his skill set to be updating forms and workflows and updating the website as Cameron has been doing. I'm not sure who set this up back in February, but and I worked with Mike on some of those lists. And then there's also the Andy biting piece, which I had a call with Andy last Friday. Yeah. I did set up a simple workflow as a sample. There's two ways. The coach can just get a notification when the form is, but I actually set up a sample that he was going to offer to as part of his package. But wouldn't that be for all the coaches? Because now you're going to have landing pages that look really snazzy and spiffy, and some are going to look plain. And so, but yeah, so.
Yeah, lots of different questions. I don't know anything that is insurmountable. I mean, the website now, Cameron's doing a reasonably good job. If we want to add, let's say, Guatemala today as a location, he can get that done. He'll do it pretty quickly and get it set up. We've just got to change the application form to give it more rigor, but he can do that pretty quickly, and we'll have that done by Monday, so that we can then, as somebody applies to it, we just got to make sure that if it is their city is Vancouver or whatever it is, that then it gets automatically sent to Vancouver.
I told Mike and Vern this morning that I think what the issues that happened is that back in February of 2021, I see in HubSpot that someone created these forms for a set amount of cities, but Austin and Dublin don't have a form. So I'm thinking that maybe Cameron cloned the landing page the Vancouver form. Yeah. So the form has to be created. The display message still says, "Thank you for your interest in Scaleup Masters program." There's lots of things, happening. And just to that point about Daniel too, for bigger picture, that I was thinking, that RSVP that came in for the February 2nd webinar, I think that was going into Growth Institute's HubSpot.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So we've got then.
So there's a disconnect between all those leads that just came in to join the webinar, and then they go to the scaleup.com site and apply, and there's no to follow up on those leads because they would have had to opt in and be in Vern's database. So
exactly that. So I've had to write to Rebecca and to Alex to say, can you please send back all the people that were on the call? And because quite a lot of people did it with a personalized link, can we find out if they are from a certain region or whatever? So there are lots of disconnects at the moment. None of them are insurmountable, but I think what we have to do very quickly is envision what the customer journey looks like, because we are going to start seeing. I've had three leads, really good leads from that, from Wednesday's call for London, which is amazing. I mean, that I don't know how many people from the UK were on the call, but to have 3 hot leads who want to join the next cohort, and if we've had that replicated elsewhere, that was very, very powerful. But they will want to understand, if this is a premier coaching program, that there's a follow-up. Is there as soon as that comes in, do we then have a note that somebody be in touch with you, and this will be the next step of your process as you get to be selected for a program? So that's thinking still to be done.
And I want to get, because Renee is on, I told the team this, Neil, we had a meeting on Tuesday around just how to think about it. If Ramona's talking with a lead about it, because we just want to make sure, or if we're explaining it to coaches and certification, or however we need to understand it. I thought Vern's kind of explanation of it, it's not necessarily, it's not competing with our coaching packages. He sort of, and I'm assuming this is correct, so correct me if I'm wrong, if you're understanding, like that it's more of a train, like look at the 20,000 Scaleups as a training program, because they're not really getting necessarily that individual coaching. So it's almost like a year-long workshop where they're going to work through and progress through in a year's time,
Yeah.
sort of multiple sessions and workshops. But that was helpful for me as far as clarifying when we're having conversations with leads or prospects, or, you know, because what we plan to do is with Ramona is as she's talking with leads, if they would be in a city, potentially referring them to, you know, and depending what their needs were,
yeah.
looking at referring them to the 20,000 Scaleups if it made sense. So like if they're based wherever, she could certainly give that as an option. They can do one-on-one, they can do this. So I think that was part of this call too, was just to get clarity around that. But that for me helped me understand to position it more as a training versus a coaching engagement.
You got it. So just for everyone's perspective, you know, again, this is a really premium sort of global coaching program right now. As Vern articulated on Wednesday night, our BHAG is really about helping 150 cities around the globe successfully scale up 150 organizations. If we do that, that's an impact of around about 22,000 organizations. In 2022, it looks like right now, as things stand, it might be up to 23 cities who want to go around June and July time of this year. Probably in reality, it will be closer to 18 to 20, I think, for some, but maybe not really follow through. So just some things strategically, just so you're all alive to that. Late sort of middle of last year, we moved for the fourth time. So the name has changed from what I first did in 2018 when it was Scale Up University. Then it was the Scale Up Executive Program, then became the Scaling Up Masters Program, now to 20,000 Scaleups Program. I hope to dear God that it never changes again. So this is it now. So if Vern decides that he talks about changing name again, because somebody just make sure that is quickly shut down. Then 5 profit organizations on each cohort. That is the senior team. And that often is anything from 3 people up to 7 or 8 people. I've had more, but that's sort of around it, who have really got the potential to scale to 100 million and beyond. Vern also mentioned on Wednesday night that the goal is in due course to have one social venture or for purpose organization be funded onto each cohort. We don't have a global sponsor right now. So the only way this would really work is if that social venture is happy to pay or part of it, or the coach gives up their place for free. But the idea in the future that will be maybe a big global organization like JP Morgan or something like that, who would then fund that particular area. Kristen, to your point, this is an education program now. It's not necessarily a coaching program. This is an education program. It's a 12-month classroom learning program delivered every quarter, where the senior team comes to and gets education in the whole of our curriculum. And then that's supplemented by, in between that, online learning portal, where we set up specific learning platforms that complement whatever they're focused on in that given time. So if they're focused on cash, the learning that they'll be doing will be Alan Miltz's course, it will be Greg Crabtree's course, it'll be anything else on the online learning portal that's designed to complement both the classroom education as well as permeate deeper into the organization. So it's not just the senior team, but they can educate that into the other areas. Eugene's company, in terms of the Lionsdale Scale Up Scoreboard software, will actually help, if you're not having so much coaching, having their ability to get everything set up on one portal where they've got their one-page plan, they've got their areas of priorities, and they've got that level of accountability that coach can just check in with and see where they're at. And then Harvard Learning, we were due to kick off with Harvard, but then made the call that that's just not going to make sense. Harvard wasn't even open and probably won't be open until later this year. So Harvard now is at the end of each 12-month cohort, and the CEOs will go there, hopefully in the fall of 2023, to come together for 2 days of extra learning, building out relationships with the other CEOs, starting our alumni process, and getting a master's certificate. And then simplification. We got ourselves tied up in knots a bit because we had different price points depending on where an organization was and if they wanted this, that, the other. It's just one price point of US 5,000 per month now. So just try to eat our own dog food, keep things straightforward around that. And then from a coach's perspective, if you take that forward on a program that offers up 5 companies, each investing 60K over a year, that's revenues of 300K. Costs from taking the royalties out, one-time fees that we have in terms of for bringing all this together, and then the costs of venues, marketing. That might be a bit more now with Andy Bitings, but actually we did build in marketing to this as an investment already. Books, speakers, everything else around that. You'd look to make a GP of around 70% or 210,000 profit. If you're doing a couple of these a year, well, you can double that. Or if you want to bring coaches on board to be part of your delivery team, that might just, take away a bit of profit around that. So hopefully it goes on, a bit more around what the city benefits are, but hopefully, Rennie specifically, but everyone else, that gives you an overview now of where we're up to. I think that's probably just makes sense. Just to bring it up again, I think the next couple of slides were more the city benefit, but I think just to bring you up to speed with the cities, just to help you understand where we're up to right now and see the global reach.
And Neil, does that 90,000 include the royalties, and the 210 is a profit for the coach?
Yeah, it does include the royalties.
So the 210 is a profit for the coach.
Yeah.
Okay, revenue for the coach.
All right. Yeah, good question. So those royalties have gone up a bit because Vern wants to, as I said, fund the COO or COO and sort of the admin team behind that. So we just need to, I suppose, what was it, 2,500? If you multiply that by 100 businesses that are on the program in year one, is that 250,000, is it?
Yeah.
And then as you then go through into year 2, maybe up to 50, that's 500,000 of fees that are coming through for funding the back office scenes, I guess, as it were. And he's one of the things we're going to talk about on Monday night is making sure that everybody understands precisely what this looks like and why he's made that call. Because there's 1 or 2 coaches that previously signed a deal and it was around about 1,500 a month, not 2,500 of those royalties. So they have gone up, but you need to be very clear about why he's made that decision and how it's going to help making sure there's good back office behind that. Does that make sense to everyone?
And you just said 2,500 a month. It's 2,500 per org, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, Rennie.
Not per month.
But yeah, per yeah. Sorry, my fault. Yeah, per organization.
And can I ask a quick question?
Let's go.
When you talked about the customer journey earlier, you were talking. So how do you picture these orgs that go into this? What do you picture their whole scaling up journey to kind of look like? What did you envision when you built this?
Okay, can I just come back to that then? So hold that thought. I'll just go through the launch cities, and then I'll
Sure.
talk directly to that. So you can see really good news. I think from a global perspective is that we've got some mighty impressive cities. You look at that and you're looking to go to potential global sponsors or go to organizations that might want to partner up on this. The fact that you've got the likes of London, Dubai in the Middle East, Mexico City, Boston, Denver, San Francisco, Abu Dhabi, Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, which is an amazing country, growing super quick, Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane in Australia, San Diego, Vancouver, these other US companies in Guatemala. There's some mighty impressive cities here. We're probably, I just need to find out from Bruce Eckfeldt. I think he's probably wants to go in New York as well. So that's, again, massive in that respect. That only then really leaves someone like a Singapore, a Tokyo, Mumbai, and we've got some pretty big global coverage. So if we can get those cities brought on by the end of the year, there's every chance we can do, I think we give ourselves a really good first step around that. So back to your point, Renee, I think the journey, and all I can go on from what we did in London, but I think how we want to envisage that is that we make the application process easy enough for people to complete, but rigor enough to show that there's a bit of rigor around it. If you come across the Goldman Sachs 10,000 program, if you heard of that program, their application process is so bureaucratic. It's really, really in depth, and they can get away with it because it's established, and people will say, you want to go and join the Goldman Sachs 10,000, and it's got to be pretty rigorous. Right now, I think we had things that were too rigorous. People say, I can't really be bothered to do this, or it's just too much like hard work. So Mark Fenner and Bill Galler and I just figuring out which is the right compromise, and we'll talk about this on Monday. Once somebody has made the application, and I think the journey then is very quickly, that then goes through to the relevant coach. So that lands on their in tray, and within 24 hours, they've made contact with that CEO to say, thanks so much for completing the application form. Can we go about setting up a meeting just to see your fit, see what your goals are, go into a bit more depth around it? Are they going to be a good fit for that? So that could be done in terms of making it easy as possible, that they can then book an appointment with a coach by Calendly or whatever it is, so they can have that conversation. Then there is a part of the journey, a potential, if they're really interested about, right, here's the agreement, the contract, that if it looks like you're going to be a good fit and you want to go ahead, this is how you can lock in your place. This is the contract, which, by the way, then has what the program's all about, what the requirements are from that particular organization, the investment they'll be making, their commitments they'll be making in terms of making sure they're on time, all the other things that we will build into that. And then really the final part of the journey is getting paid. And then you get into then the delivery side of things, which is letting them know when it's going to be, all the dates for the year ahead that's in the diaries for everybody, what's expected, then setting them up onto the Growth Institute. So and we did that. So our team got them set up on the Growth Institute, which is relatively straightforward. You've got 5 companies, you might have 50 people to do that. Setting them up on the Scaleups scoreboard software, that's relatively straightforward because you just get there, make the investment, and the Scaleups scoreboard team do most of the rest of that. Get them, if they want to, get them set up a cash flow story. And I think then that is hopefully, in a pause for breath, hopefully that is then takes you to when you start doing the delivery. And then we've got on the Google Drive, and I think, have I given you access to the Google Drive with all of the scaling up checklists on, all the presentations, all of the what are the steps that you need to take to,
You may have sent it over to me.
It's on coaches, I believe.
Our journey that I brought up to Vern and I've discussed with Ramona, and I think I mentioned it to Andy, is that we'd want to put in the process that once these leads are coming to these coaches, but if they don't sign up with the program, we don't want to lose them into a black hole. So we want to set up a process where we bring them back to the coaches organization to see if they would be a better fit for another type of engagement.
Yeah, makes utter sense.
Neil, do you have any ideas, like how long will the application period be running?
Well, as experience has shown, that you can still have people who are coming onto the program just a week before you actually start it. And that happened a couple of times in London. You're thinking, how are we going to get the fifth one over the line? And then somebody, just in terms of your marketing, sort of says, yeah, can we join the next one? And so we've always got away with 5, but sometimes it has got a bit close to the wire. And I'm sure that will happen elsewhere. In an ideal world, we want to get into a rhythm now, I think, in terms of, and bear in mind, we didn't have any webinars like we did previously or concerted global, sort of marketing for this. So I think you'd like to think that you will get most companies committed a couple of months before that actual program is due to run.
So Neil, can I go back real quick? This was super helpful, and I got all the details on the journey, like for the program. Let me just clarify. I wanted a quick brain dump from you on the journey, like the laddering of scaling up, if you will. Like, so this is training, right? So someone hears of scaling up, they buy a book, right? Like, is that where you picture the scaling up journey? Like, how does this fit into the scaling up journey? Because I'm assuming you're hoping that the people who go through this will also, like, you're creating your own feeder system as a coach, that 2 out of the 5 will become coaching engagements or something like that. So I kind of wanted to hear, like, how you picture this fitting in the whole scaling up customer journey.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. And I think things have evolved since we first did this in London, where it was more of a hybrid. It was, some organizations just came on for the education. Others actually had coaching during that 12-month period as well. And that, by the way, that might still be the case. There's nothing stopping an organization who wants to invest more, so over above their $5,000 a month, to say, actually, we still need some help, coaching help to do that. If the coach has got the bandwidth to do that, then they can invest more money. There's no reason why they can't do that. But this is.
Would you typically be expecting that would be like the next year?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me what you picture as like the perfect scaling up journey. Like, when you built this, like, what were you picturing? How this fits into the entire scaling up journey, not just a coach's client. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And to be brutally honest, I don't think we had a real picture at the time around that. But I think now this is an education journey that you would like to think then culminates in a longer term engagement, certainly with the right organizations. Because if you've had 12 months to sort of get to work with them and be in the classroom, you'll know pretty much if you want to work with them full time, or if you've seen that thing, there's no way in the world I'd like to continue to engage with that organization. So I think we will see that. You'd like to think that 2 to 3 will continue for a year, 2, 3 years after that. And if not, then what are the other options that they've got open to them? Do they stay on and use Growth Institute tools still? You'd like to think that if they've got scoreboard working for them still, that they will continue to use the Scaling Up scoreboard, and that keeps that conversation going in that way. Somebody quite rightly from Guatemala raised a question today about if they've been on the Scaling Up scoreboard for a year, will they, when they come off this 20,000 scale, will they get an extra benefit or discount, for continuing on that? And I didn't have the answer. So
are you kind of picturing, like, Vern does his, like, buy a book, you learn the book, then you buy a box of books for your team, then you kind of go to a workshop, then you bring your team to a workshop, you start self-implementing, maybe you buy scoreboard, you do whatever. Then you would typically start with a coach. So you see it as sort of an additional piece in between, say, starting to self-implement and hiring a coach, like a training step for some people in between that step. Is that where you would picture the entry to the market?
It could be that way. I think the way that we've normally done it is our model before COVID was running 4 or 5 public workshops per year. And out of that public workshop, you typically get to a place where, look, you're going to be in a number of different places right now. Some of you have come to today's workshop and you've got all you need and you're quite self-sufficient and you go away and do it yourself, which is fine. Others of you have come here today and realize that you're totally overwhelmed. You can't think for 1 minute how you're going to implement that. It's great news. There's help at hand. This is a Scaling Up Coaches, how we can help you do that. And there's two courses. One, we've got this powerful 20,000 or Scaling Up Masters program back then, but 20,000 Scaleups, which sees you come together for a series of education with your team over 4 specific quarters, really getting them all up to speed and knowing exactly how this works. And then after that, if you've got all the value coming through it, then the opportunity to have a full-time coaching engagement. Others of you may actually not want that. You just want to go straight into having a coach. So that's the journey that we did. rightly or wrongly, but that's a kind of the journey that's signposting people through into to that. And I would imagine that will be something similar around that, that we've got in our locker, in our shop, as it were, these different programs, and people can clearly see that 20,000 Scaleups is something that gives them high quality education, gives them an ability to go to Harvard, which is an amazing differentiator, and an ability to bring all of their senior team together. And then not try before you buy, but by the end of that period, they'll know precisely where they're at and what further help. Does that help?
Yeah. So that's kind of what I was picturing where it probably fit in. So you're picturing the feeder to 20,000 Scaleups is the workshops for them, like is one of the top.
Yeah, I think that's definitely
Renee, let me just share with Renee. Renee, I see it differently, as that it's really geographically based heavily.
Okay.
So it's going to be part of being that involved with other growth leaders in your specific geography. I think that's the whole stuff. I mean, that typically, I think you'll see a whole new group of people that maybe have never heard of Scaling Up, but they've heard of a program that's going to allow them to plug into the leadership.
Yeah, that's kind of that's the differentiator, is like, are these people who are already familiar with Scaling Up, and do they fit in? Which it could come from a coach's workshops in a geography, or if the market, like the chamber or the whatever is involved, Economic Development Council, whatever, if they're involved, then those would be people who've never heard of Scaling Up, like you're talking about, right, Kristen? Like if they recommend people to this program kind of thing.
Yeah. And there will also be other, other areas. James Drake specifically, because of his competency around private equity and knowing, as an investor, James may well be actually just doing it, filling his all out through private equity companies, at their portfolio companies in a given city or a given geography. We may well see, I know with the city leaders from Westminster City Council and talking to them this morning, they may well put 2 or 3 of their fastest growing organizations onto that particular program because they know about it and one. So I think, like anything, it won't be just one particular route. There will be multiple routes. Obviously, we had the webinar on Wednesday night. I was not expecting 3 leads to come out of that webinar, truth be known. That was pretty powerful. There will be referrals, in due time. So I think we'll see typically lots of different ways that people will find onto this program. I think our opportunity here is that now we have a global program to talk about. We've got
the ones that you've done so far, how many of the, like if you've done 5 at a time in London, how many have you retained as a coaching client afterwards? Percentage, 60% or?
Yeah, I think it might just be a bit more than that. I literally shared with one of the other coaches today, and I'm happy to send you the details behind the. Let me just find. I've still got it now. We tracked and measure pretty much how long we worked with companies for. Let me just bring this up, and it will give you a better inclination because we. Let me share this. And by the way, you've got SMP here around it, but you'd like to think most of those companies that are, so they must have been working with them for 6 odd years now. Maybe a couple of them were already working with beforehand, so that makes sense. But yeah, most of them must have gone over the 12-month mark. There's 1 or 2 here that didn't go over it, and that is relatively before we had to close down in 2019. So yeah, of the 20 or so that have been through it, I would say, yeah, it's probably just a bit more than 60%.
Okay.
And the nice thing is what Vern was able to talk about, we can see those that have gone on to sell for $1 billion in valuation, the amount of jobs we've created, the revenue growth that they've seen, the profitability growth. And one of the things that I want to work out with Eugene is that we're building into the Scaling Up scoreboard these numbers and metrics as well, so that we can then see over time, as a global coaching organization, all those metrics. What are the jobs that are being created? What's the value, revenue growth? Because if we can do that, then we become valuable to cities. We become valuable to other organizations because we've got all that data, which hitherto, as an organization, probably is only known to the coach. maybe there's a few testimonials that come back, but most of their, that their financial success is only known to the coach at a local level.
So Kristen, that's the kind of stats that Deb was kind of proposing I
think Renee, honestly though, since we've had that conversation, I'm concerned that there's a lot that has been left to be a TBD of who's going to man it. So I need to put together, I think, some clear roles, one of them being, a marketing role that essentially the program that has already launched is now expecting our team to deliver. So I'm going to have some more conversations, because I don't want us to even start until we have a full sort of process and it's been tested and we're sure we're all on the same page. I don't even want to exert any marketing.
Oh yeah, no. All I'm pointing out is if there is this data, like if we can pull some data out of this in the next 12 months, then that might keep us from needing to do another project with data.
Yeah,
right. Like
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to kind of see. And my only concern is that I feel like that would potentially, again, being collecting data from coaches, which we've struggled. Neil's always one that's sent us stuff. Neil, you're really good about that. Like when we look for success stories or retention, Neil tracks that all really well. I would say he's one. So I don't know that we want to rely on that in lieu of them doing some marketing research if we decide that's something we want to do.
Yeah, and I think, as I said, this is a bit further down the road, but I've already asked Eugene to start looking at the ability, because on the Scaleup scoreboard, you have to set out already what their revenues are, and that, and also bearing in mind we'll have a lot of them using cash flow stories, so we can then look back into that as well in terms of their revenue growth. So that's, again, as a global coaching organization, is potentially gold dust, because we'll be able to lay claim to what ostensibly Vern's always had his triple promise guarantee. But if somebody actually came to a task and said, well, you talk about 3xing profit and doubling turnover, and where's the proof? Only we'd have to go, well, let me have a think about that for a minute.
Yeah. So Neil, as far as, can I ask you, when the applications, I'm just trying to get a handle on what might pop up that we're going to have questions on. So right now, when you get leads, you're managing them. Once you receive them, that is on you as the coach. So each coach is going to manage their city. They're not going to be, we don't run any reports for them or anything like that right now, right? Because we don't have any of that set up. So right now, it's as a lead comes in, that coach will then manage all the conversation.
You'd like to think, but there's no guarantee. And at the moment, anybody who is completing the form on the first page of the 20,000 Scaleups, so that you didn't go to click on their city, but they went to the very bottom of the page where there is an application form, that comes to me. So on the Wednesday night, literally, even as the call was going on, I was starting to get applications, which is all very nice, but I haven't got, again, the bandwidth to do that. I can do it for 5 or 6, but there's no way that I can do it, consistently around that. So we just need to systemize that to ensure that as that comes in, every single touch point. I think you're absolutely bang on, Carolyn. I think what Cameron has done is replicate 1 or 2 of those, so that's why they're going off into all sorts of different directions. We just need to, and I don't think it'd be a very quick take too long, is to make sure that that's just going to one central person who can then disseminate that to the right coach. We are, by the way, getting some leads, let's say from South America or India or Afghanistan, that we don't have a 20,000 Scaleups at the moment. And I have to go and figure out what do I do with that. And again, it's back to Carolyn's point. We should never lose that lead, because that might be great for somebody who's in Mumbai or Azerbaijan or wherever they're based. But, that's not a 20,000 Scaleup thing. But in essence, it still needs in that their journey to say, right now, we don't have a 20,000 Scaleup program running in Mumbai. Thank you so much for your inquiry, but we'll put you through to a local coach. And if we haven't got a coach in India, we should be putting it to next, maybe Dubai or where there's somebody's close by, so we don't drop that particular ball.
Yeah, Ramona does all that great stuff. And Neil, when you get that general application form, as you were getting do you have to field them and pass them back out to the coaches, like by email? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing on Wednesday. Was then, right, okay, that's great. That's for Don Hachet. So I sent it up to him. There was one for Paul Cronin for Indianapolis, or I think it was something like that, or Minneapolis, St. Paul. Yeah, it was Minneapolis, St. Paul. There was a few others that were Denver away, which was a nice thing to do because straight away coaches going back and saying, "This is amazing. I've just got a 10 million organization that wants to get involved in the program." But obviously that's not sustainable. It's not, and we can't then track and measure when we do webinars and stuff like that. Where they've come from, have they been picked up? Like Ramona does. Ramona will be having a tracking thing that here is a lead. It's dedicated to Neil Lewis. Neil, automated after a couple of weeks, have you made contact with aforementioned lead yet? Have you followed up? When you've done that, have you got a coaching engagement with that? When is the referral dues going to be coming in? All those sort of things. So I think that's, again, Ramona, that sort of journey that she's created for that is probably quite similar to what we need to do for the 20,000 scale-ups. Being able to tag them, it's a 20,000 scale-up in HubSpot, who the relevant coach is, and then making sure that they, that journey is that they've been touched or whatever.
So again, back to Kristen's point, it's a pretty big job and a lot of hours to manage it. So,
and back to my even point before that.
Exactly, Carolyn. And that's why Vern needs to understand that you can't just glibly say that it's going to, come in and it's all going to be good. This needs thinking about. That's why we're having this afternoon's call, because I knew that all these things up in the ether sound easy to do. In reality, it needs thinking about. It needs begin with the end in mind. What do we want the journey of anybody who's considering joining this program to look and feel like? How do we come across in terms of, in the short term that we're on it, even though we may be winging it for the next few weeks? We've got to make sure that every single person feels like this is important. The website is getting there now, so that first touch is looking better. But, again, it's about setting ourselves, the goal of continue to improve that.
And just to confirm, I know I sound like a broken record. All of these things have been known to be not under control, and Vern still launched the program.
Correct.
Okay. I want to make sure I'm not missing. And listen, I'll have a very direct conversation with Vern, but I think that was a very big gamble on his part.
And don't get me wrong, this thing is suddenly from around October, he was getting so frustrated. I mean, he literally was chewing my head off and the raft of things, because it was just felt like it was going nowhere. No one's really been doing it for so long. And, why is it ever going to happen? And then suddenly, from around about late November, December, whatever part of the flywheel started kicking into place. But we got the right cadence of communication with the coaches. They could start seeing that there were a few like James who really started to get the bit between his teeth. And then it literally coming into January, it really is kicked in. So having 20 companies, I didn't think we'd get to 20 companies in my wildest dreams. I think even Vern and I thought we'd get up to 15. That would be amazing. And now suddenly we're at 23. We're going to have to say that's it. You're going to have to wait until later in the year to launch, unless they've got an unbelievably good reason. So, yeah, and I think, Kristen, he just thought I was an enthusiastic volunteer who could do all this as well, which is very complimentary. But he didn't realize that I don't have any access to HubSpot and any access to update any websites if I wanted to or anything like that. So, yeah, there is limitations that I have as well.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. I guess I just assumed because it had progressed to a certain point. I mean, as far as and that was this admin part was the question when John and I talked, and that was over a year ago. Yeah. So I just assumed that it had been put into place since it was going to launch. So yeah,
you know what the old adage is about assume?
Yes, I do. I know it. I know it totally.
Yeah. I've learned very much about working with, and obviously this has been recorded today, so I need to be careful what I say.
No, it's not going to be shared with anybody outside of this team.
I have a question. Just if we get questions to field for from our coaches.
Yeah.
Going back of how this was set up, how were coaches, did they volunteer? Did they choose? Now that it's really taking off, what if a coach comes in? I understand if there's not a coach in the city already, they would contact you, but Kristen, is there going to be a geographic location and they're going to be like, wait, why wasn't I included? This is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and we're starting to get that already, Carol. In New York is one example. Melbourne's another. Kristen sent me details of coaches in Melbourne that wanted to get involved around it. We've had a bit of challenge in Brisbane as well. So I think it will become more prevalent where we have got multiple coaches in a certain city. Rob Nancavis is with Rob Kinnereth have taken on Melbourne, and in some respects it is fit. In some respects it's first come first served. So if you were brave enough to put your hand up or you wanted to get that city, once you've signed it off as the leader of that city, that almost gives you the franchise rights for that region or that city. You kind of you've locked in around that, which is then tough maybe for the others who come in. But I can't think of another way. But what I tend to do, Caroline, is say, look, Rob Nancavis is leading in Melbourne right now. Please reach out to Rob. He might need some help, or you can come and partake in that and see where that leads. So
we would refer them probably back to their location, whoever the coach lead is, and not to you, not to Vern. Okay.
Yeah, and I think again, it's something that as this thing, and it will happen, and it won't be far away till we've got the next summit in May. That will be something that really snowballs. It's like the flywheel. It took so long to get this damn flywheel moving, and then suddenly it starts to get a bit of pace, and we get more cities, and then more coaches want to get involved. It will develop its own momentum, which is great, which is what we want. But we've got to then anticipate what the likely challenges, both from an admin perspective, but to that point as well. Jen,
can I ask a question?
I got Jen's hand up first, and then I'll.
Oh, sure.
Come back.
No, I just had a quick question about the coaches that are taking part in these cities. As far as was there a requirement that and an expectation, guidelines that these coaches had to meet and exceed? I just kind of want some background knowledge of the coaches who are taking part in these cities. Is it just you want to do it and you can, or have you gone through a thoughtful process of who is taking these leads?
Yeah, and there have been. That's a great question again, and there have been one or two that weren't necessarily in good order, who wouldn't have been a good fit. And bearing in mind as well, this is you've got to be reasonably entrepreneurial. You've got to be somebody who's quite comfortable about building relationships up with city leaders, with the local mayor, about connecting with YPO and EO. So it isn't for everybody. If you're not quite entrepreneurial, all I want to do is just coach and do that. It probably isn't going to be the right thing for you. So
is there a certificate? Is there an education training program plan that they all have to follow the same?
Well, at the moment, and I'll send this to you all. There's a city leader agreement. Okay, so it gives an executive summary, and this is quite useful, having the executive summary about what we're about, what the on campus looks like, what online looks like, the Harvard bit, and then here's the criteria. So you've got to be a certified scaling up coach. Now, there are going to be one or two that are also in another community, like Metronome. But we need to be very, very clear. It has to be the Scaling Up School, but you cannot use other software. It has to be one software. You need to complete, program and how you're going to launch it in your city. They've got to have those relationship, business building skills, pretty good at marketing skills, good standing with the community. And again, it's only the Scaling Up Performance platform. You cannot, if you're aligned to Action Coach, US Vistage, or whatever, use any of those operating systems in any way, shape, or form. Now, I'm stealing myself that we'll have to have some tough conversations, because it will happen. It would no doubt that somebody will try and shortcut or or do something
Right.
like that.
Because, I talk to coaches all the time, and when I'm having conversations, they'll say, well, I don't use Align and I don't use Scaling Up Cash Flow Story. Like, I have a whole spreadsheet of all of our coaches who don't use Scaling Up Cash Flow Story and really don't understand how to utilize the software. So that's kind of why I'm asking, because
it's a great question. And again, if you want to take this on board, you're understanding you're going to share your KPIs as well. That's the revenues, like I showed you a bit earlier on. There's a format for doing that. And as I said, unfortunately, we'll have to steel ourselves that there may be a couple of presidents that don't do it the right way, which will no longer do that. But because it's signed, I'd like to think it's pretty clear. It's black and white. What the expectation is. People go through it. They read it in detail. When I go and speak back to them, do you understand what you're committing to here?
And Jen, just to answer even further, and then I do have to go right at
So do I.
I've got, there is no training. So coaches that aren't willing to be unsure, we're sort of beta. I mean, Neil's done it, but we're developing it. So if there's a coach, they have to go through the application, but it is you figure it out as you go program. So there's some consistency, and I'm sure at some point, if we build it out further, there may be more, but right now it is if it's somebody that needs a manual for everything, they probably should not step into this role, because they won't have that level of support.
But as I said, we've tried to make it as easy as possible. All the checklists, how do you go about making it happen in your city, all those things. Again, it'll be helpful. The next call I've got is actually with Andy and Don Hashay in the next. They're starting to queue up now. So also the calls we have on every other Monday night, that will in turn become best practice as well. So you would imagine that even now we're starting to share, as a community best practice. What if we could do it this way? Here's a better way of doing it with, investors or private equity companies. I think there's a better way of doing the marketing that the call we're about to do. So I think we will see the power of the community build this out, just like we saw Bill was our best placed person to lead with Vern on Wednesday night. We will figure it out in terms of how we make that happen. Hopefully it's a beneficial call for everybody this afternoon.
It's great.
Thanks so much.
It was good. We'll talk about, I'm going to do some follow-up with email, and then we'll probably talk about this at our weekly meeting on Wednesday morning.
Fantastic.
So we'll let you know.
And again,
thank you.
If you have any questions or anything like that, you hopefully some of you join us again on Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We'll figure it out.
Perfect.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a good one, Neil.
Bye-bye.
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 Good evening.
Gentlemen.
Good morning. Good afternoon, wherever we are in the world.
We're Friday. Afternoon.
Yeah, it's Friday.
As well.
Yeah, 1 p.m. right now, our time.
Of course it is. Yes. Yeah. We're closer than we think.
Neil, it's been, 10 years? We've been doing the same thing. We know our time.
You know your time. Yeah. I just get so conditioned to 12 p.m. Eastern. And then 5 hours. And then when it all goes wrong, when the clocks go forward in the UK a week before the US, and then we're jumping on calls like, where were you? Well, where were you? Oh, no. We've missed each other by an hour again. And then these things happen. How are you both? You okay?
Good. Dawn, I just spent all morning with you cutting up video. We did a video testimonial thing with Ron Lovett for the 20,000 Scaleups Atlantic Canada here.
Beautiful.
And we're editing this video, and I've just spent about 2 hours looking at Dawn, and now we get to see him live. So
fantastic.
Who are you?
Well, at some stage, I've got his session he did in London in 2018, which he did from obviously Halifax, but he beamed in and he was brilliant. But every time he joins us, he's been brilliant.
Yeah.
So you have to send him my regards.
Yeah, I will. So, you wanted to go over, I'm assuming the purpose for this call is to just go over what we're going to present to the coaches on Monday. Oh, doubles. Yeah.
Hey.
I like it.
Cool.
What do you think?
I think it looks good. The, the funny thing is all of the, anybody who buys that book in Canada right now, because in the US it's different, but if it's Canada, because of the paper shortage,
Yeah.
they're being printed in the UK.
Wow.
You know, Amazon doesn't stock books, right? They
Oh, yeah.
print on demand when you place your order, and but they're all printed in the UK and then shipped to Canada.
Well, this one, unless it's a mistake, and it says printed in the United States of America.
Okay, so maybe they've changed their. When we first launched it, it was like that for about a month or so.
So I've just come off a call before we get started in your bit with the Scaling Up coaching team. Kristen, Carolyn, Jen, Renee, who else do we have on there? Anyway, the team. And what is very apparent, there's no surprise from Vern's decision to bring this back in the Scaling Up coaches community, that there's no thinking being done whatsoever around the administration, which I knew. And there's a total disconnect between Vern's team, who's Mike Davis and Cameron Harmish, and the Scaling Up coaches team. So they get it. Thankfully, we've, I think, caught it just about quickly enough, because I don't think they realized how quickly this thing is moving forward. And
the whole 20,000 scale-ups, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it is a total disconnect. So much so that even from Wednesday night, and where someone who completes that application form just goes all over the place, because what looks like happened, Cameron, when he's done different cities, is copy and pasted. I think it must have been Vancouver or something like that. So everyone who went to maybe they're in Dublin, they then all disappeared off to Vancouver, for example.
That used to be Tampa, Florida, which I enjoyed, but unfortunately didn't change.
So first up, we just got a bit of work to do, as I knew we would have to, following that call on the Monday night, where Vern is brilliant at the big picture, as we know, but when it comes to how does this all work together? That just needs to be thought out. So just want to give you a heads up on that.
Did you go on that website? Because Andy did some great work here. If you click on Atlantic Canada, you'll see the landing page is now our page, no longer.
Yeah, because I actually had conversations, Neil, with Cameron, and we've done some updates there and on their website, and also with Carolyn about how it's going to be treated through the forms are going to be treated.
Good.
So Carolyn, the first one, she completely agrees and understands. So what they're doing, and we've done it with the Atlantic Canadian site, and we're going to do it with all the other ones, is that as soon as somebody fills out that form, it's going to go into their HubSpot, into their process, but it's immediately going to go to the coach as well.
Exactly.
And as we do that, we're going to test them all. And I'd like to let them know on Monday too, that, you'll see a test coming through it. If you see a test coming through we'll say, the company's name is test or something like this, to just disregard it. But, I told Carolyn too, from our discussions and everything else, that, we need the coaches to get that email immediately so they can follow up in minutes if they want to, as opposed to hours or days or possibly week. Yeah. So that's one thing. So that's a logistical
if I can interject
thing
quickly, Andy, as well, we want to make sure that Z is not doing the same thing as well. Because I tested it today, and then, for example, the Winnipeg one you sent yesterday, I contacted them, Z contacted them, or somebody from Growth Institute contacted them.
Okay.
So we got to make sure that is clear demarcation point.
If it's on a 20,000 Scaleups form, that leave it up to the coach. Put it into your HubSpot so you can track them, or capture the email for whether they add them to the growth insights or what have you, but let the coach follow up with them, the local coach. So that's that part of it. The other side with the landing pages. So I'll just show you here, Neil. I'll share my screen. Oh, host has disabled participant screen sharing.
You've now been abled.
Awesome. Look at that. Okay. So this is the one pager that we have for the coaches, but so if you go to the Atlantic Canada, let me just show you here. If we scaling up. So even from here, find your city. we find, gonna get these, there we go. Atlanta, Canada. It will go, it looks like this now. So this is the story branded landing page that we were talking about. So what we're going to be doing is taking this template. Actually, I'll show you what we've done here right now. So there is the apply today, but this is specific to Atlanta, Canada, and it's story branded. So there's less information, but it's meant to not overwhelm people, because the original site, there's Don and I, the original site was, it's a lot of information if somebody's coming into it from an online ad, for instance. So this is enough information to get their interest. It's customized for the local coaches with their images, their own bios, their location, their own testimonials, and their own venue. And then when we go to apply today, there's consistency in the branding there as well. And it's the same form, but this is now, I know ours is set up. If we do something, it goes to Don and I, we should test it again, as well as Carolyn for HubSpot immediately.
What you've got on this page, one of the other actions that came out of a couple of weeks ago from a push was we need to put a bit more rigor into the application.
Yeah,
but not too much that it's going to be dissuasive, but a bit more in terms of, can you just go back down to it? So yeah, it's obviously we need to change the yearly revenues, so it's up to date with 2021, and then anticipated revenues for the year ahead, what their growth ambitions are, maybe a couple of where they're stuck or barriers to growth, and why they believe their organization will be a good fit for the program. Not too much, but just a bit more for a bit of rigor.
That's the same one you and I created a couple of years ago. You're talking about, right, Neil?
Yeah, it's something similar to what we talked about, Don. And I've literally had that catch up with Mark Fenner and Bill Gallagher. We were sort of just giving a bit more thought to that. So we can.
Do you have a form that Andy can use?
Well, I'll send you the. I'll send you the fields that we've agreed on,
okay.
And then those fields can be just worked into this. It's not not too much more, but it just allows somebody to think, okay, this is a bit more rigorous, but not too much to thinking I can't be asked to do that. When you've got something like the Goldman Sachs 10,000, I mean, it's like 6 pages that need to be completed, and there's different because there is an established program that maybe people want to get on, and you might get to that a bit further down the road. But so as an action, I'll send you the fields.
So one question I do have around that is, and the way that I've treated this is not really an application form, but because even we have applied today, but it should be more, when we get here, it's an expression of interest. Because so. And I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but I'm just thinking it through, because there is a lot to be said with just having them express interest. So we get just the basic information, which would be a form like this. And then once we have this, that the local coach can follow up and say, hey, listen, John, great to see that you're interested in the program. Here's a little bit of a criteria. This is the type of company we're looking for. The next step in the application process is to fill out this application form, and then it can be more robust. And there's a lot to be said for getting them to do more work. Maybe not quite to the 10,000 small business program that Goldman Sachs doing, but to do more work, because then they're more invested in it. But you don't want to give them that application form if it's more robust, if it's much more robust on the first date. You want to do that after you've engaged with them a little bit, then give them the application form. Because it's funny, I was just talking to a good friend of mine I went through Birthing Giants with, and he said, I remember filling that Birthing a Giants form out, and it took me like a day and a half. I put a lot of time into that, but I was totally invested once I had that filled out in hopes that I would get in.
Yeah, look, it's not many more tabs that we go into it. I think it's just that you maybe employee growth, revenue growth in terms of growth aspirations. So it's just a tiny bit more. So I'll send you those tabs, and just I think given that Mark was pushing on it and Bill was pushing on it as well, just the fact we reflected that would be a good thing to do.
So yeah, for sure. But do we envision that to be the final application form for clients or for companies?
Pretty close to. I think, as I said, what you've got here is not a million miles away. It was just a push from a couple of weeks ago. We just need to again give the perspective. This is not a shoe-in. You've got to have some sort of feel like this is why should I be accepted onto this program?
Yeah.
And I think again, just because Mark and Bill put some time into this, I think if you sharing it on Monday, that's been taken thought of, that would be just a good thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, you and I discussed a couple of years ago, is that what's your main barrier to growth? It was one of the tabs.
Yeah, once you've done that, I'll just show you. It's only just tidying that up a bit, and 3-4 other questions that are a bit more in terms of what are your growth aspirations, what are your barriers to growth, why do you think you benefit from being on this program?
That's it. Yeah,
that's it. Bang.
So one of the things that, to make it a whole lot easier, Neil, I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but Vern gave us permission to get the back-end access to his website. So we update these ourselves. We don't need to involve Cameron at all. And Cameron was all over it. And as soon as Vern gave permission, I kind of jumped on it and said, yeah, before it goes away, because otherwise it could be difficult, right? Could slow us down.
Exactly that, and you'll notice pretty quickly that there are a number of enthusiastic volunteers, including myself, including Cameron, that once you do that for a while, Vern can just sort of lean on your goodwill. And, and then he just says, oh, well, you're part of the team now. Well, no, we're not. So one of the conversations again that I would imagine you just need to be alive to this is obviously Kristen is going to be having a conversation with Vern on Monday, and I would imagine it's quite a blunt conversation about you've now gone full steam ahead on launching a big global program, and you haven't fully thought out all the administrative things and how it all works. And you've got an organization where you've got on the one hand one team who are putting together ostensibly a website, and another team who are going to be capturing leads, and another team now you've asked to go and do the marketing. And yeah, well, what about it? Well, it's a perfect opportunity for a dog's dinner. So it's because the way Vern thinks, and we know it's very, very strategic and whatever, that's great. But again, now we're in a very different phase of making sure that this works, and that the whole user journey, and you get it, and you absolutely get it. But we just need to be very sensitive to that. And I think that's why Kristen will probably have a quite a terse conversation with him and say, look, you haven't really spoken to us about how this is going to work.
Yeah, there's a disconnect between their communication. Get that, but very self-serving for Andy and I. I'm not speaking for Andy here, but I kind of am. Is that we were able to put something like this together quicker and to the point than what they can do.
Definitely, and that's the same for all of us, because the way we think, and we, as entrepreneurs by default, we kind of see a problem or create an opportunity to solve it.
Yeah, and and I mean, we are doing this, and we're not, I'm cautious to not get caught into any kind of a trap or anything, because we're doing these updates, and I don't mind helping, if it helps other coaches too, but the ones that are hiring Tulip Media, like, we're also, there is compensation for setting this up. I just got word, because I just asked my digital girl what to change this form. This is a HubSpot form, so I will coordinate it, but it has to be done by Carolyn. I can't get into the back end. This is a form from HubSpot that's embedded into the website. So, but Carolyn seems to be very cooperative and very easy to work with. So I'll see if I can get her to update the forms even before Monday. If I get those questions.
That would be good. That would be good. I'll do that straight away. You don't want me to copy Karen in on that then?
You could, and then I'll reply back and I'll explain kind of what we're trying to do a little bit on the back end, and that's not a bad idea because then she knows it's not just me asking this for all coaches; it's actually 20,000 coaches asking this for all the participating coaches.
Okay.
And I think it'd be a very simple fix for her because it's one form that's designed in HubSpot. She could add 4 more lines and have that in there pretty quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would instantly be reflected on everyone's application form page, regardless if they take part in our program or not. If they take part in our program, just so you know as well, Neil.
So
if they take part,
move on. You're advocating now that every single location will look like this.
Yes.
Because this is a single form in HubSpot that is embedded onto the website. So
sorry, Andy. I meant every single. If I was to land on Vancouver,
yeah,
it would look like the whole approach you got from the the sort of storyboard from the top to the bottom.
No, it actually wouldn't. Because let me just because that's what I was just going to. I was just mentioning or just starting to dive into is that if somebody goes on to here, and let's say Atlanta does not take part in our program, nothing's gonna change for Atlanta. It's still gonna look just like this.
Yeah.
The form will be all the same throughout all of them. So we will have those 3 or 4 other questions on there.
Yeah.
But it's gonna look exactly like this. It's not going to look like this.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So only the ones that are paying for the program are going to get this upgrade to their landing page. And the idea is that we are going to be, because there's 4 parts to the offering. We are going to be doing a keyword strategy so that we can be effective with the local advertising, and it's different in every region. So we're starting a few of those because some coaches have already expressed interest. So we're going to do a keyword strategy. We're going to use very hyper localized pay-per-click advertising, as well as LinkedIn outbound marketing strategies, all in efforts to drive people to their landing page, which is what we just looked at.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if they don't buy the program, they don't get any of that. And then we'll run it for 90 days, mid-February to mid-April or mid-May, let's say. And then we'll leave the landing pages up until the week of the launch, and then it'll revert back because then, it's talking about a launch in June 6th. We don't want to be advertising that after June 6th.
But as a global page, you'd want it to continue on past June the 6th. So just envision what it's going to look like after that, I guess.
So then what would happen is just these localized landing pages disappear, and it goes back to this main landing page that Vern has now. Oh, yeah. Along with it'll look like what it is now for everybody.
I'm very self-serving again, Neil. Here is that discussion Andy and I had is that after this is done, if they want to engage Tulip Media to continue this program, they can.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm scaling up. That is not necessarily the coaches. If Tulip Media is the right partner for scaling up, keep maintaining these pages, then that's a discussion that Tulip Media and scaling up should have.
Yeah, and that could be a discussion afterwards. But this would be a nice campaign, and it's just for the coaches. We're not affecting scaling up at all. We're not doing anything there. It's just we're going to greatly influence the marketing and the buyer's journey for the local coaches that are taking part.
Definitely. No, I think it makes a lot of sense for that. Certainly the ones that maybe aren't naturally good at filling out programs and stuff like that. I mean, and also just ups our game. And again, we're probably biased, but the program that you saw, what Andy just showed, it does work if it's properly followed. I mean, Andy, for example, does the pay-per-click and all that stuff. Andy was on the engine the first time yesterday, I think, the LinkedIn thing. And within the first hour, he got a lead, a prospect to a lead conversation from this, which is, it does work. Yeah.
We have to put you on that engine, Neil. You have to stop pressing.
We got, we got 3 leads in London just out of Wednesday night's webinar, which is, that's Don't know if they'll all convert, but that's 60% of the next cohort, which I was not expecting at all, in any way, shape, or form. Didn't know how it's going to work. So that was good. I think the one thing we all then need to do, guys, is just reflect this in the either as an addendum to city leader agreement, or because, let me just share this with you right now. I think I shared it last time. This whole area in terms of where we talk about royalty fees, the investment for the Scale Up U, and then the investment for Tulip. I think we just need to put a sentence in for that. It's not mandatory. So that's at the coach's discretion. If they want to invest in this, they can do. And then what the investment looks like. So again, being transparent with everybody, everyone can see exactly what it looks like. Then they can also, because the, I don't know if I had this open a bit later, earlier on. Have I got the, I've got somewhere just the financial modeling that you can do. So you can then put in for that how much you want to invest, and then what's the impact on the gross profit. So, for example, I think for each cohort, I've always invested about 10,000 in marketing, which is about sort of 10,000, 12,000 US dollars, from what we've invested. So, I think if we, that's the other change as well, that Vern is just up this amount here. I think it was originally 1,500 that went to the Scaleups global team, but because he wants to hire a COO and have the administrative team doing that, then the way he sees that funding is from each of these cohorts, which is fair enough, because that just makes everyone's lives easier around that. He's going to explain that in more detail on Monday night, so that there's that transparency. And then what we'll probably have to do is just send out the agreement again, because if you think about it, when the coaches from last year, it's called the SMP program. There's a few other developments since then. So I think if we can just put a sentence in for what your involvement is, what the investment is, and then I'll be looking to send that out again with a new signature. I won't want to do this all the time. I think if we do any other change after that, it will just be an addendum to the agreement, as opposed to just changing that out.
And Neil, just my thoughts. I'm okay whether you include it or not, because I don't see it as part of the agreement. I see this as, here's a service from a third party company, or an outside company that has a marketing program to help you promote 20,000 scale ups. I don't actually, because I don't think it needs to be in your agreement, to be truthfully honest, because I don't think it's, if I want to run a 20,000 scale ups in my city, that's another service I can hire to help me promote it, but it's not part of the program.
But the benefit of doing it is that it just flags up that is there. It's not mandatory. It's there. Yeah. You can then just say, as part of being on this program, we've enlisted the tutor, if you want to really enhance your marketing thing. And it just brings that to their attention, that again, you're not going to be left alone, which some people might worry about.
Yeah, so, just to play on what you both are saying, is that right now coaches are reaching out and say, hey, we're good with that program, but we don't want to pay scaling up for that program. We want to pay you guys for this program. That's fine. That's where Andy and I are getting at here. This is an option that we offer, which is good. And
if
right
they
now,
don't want to, then completely fine.
That. And that's right. It's very explicit. This is optional. These others are mandatory. You have to invest in the Scaling Up Scoreboard. You have to invest in such and such, the Growth Institute, because that's what the program is very clear in its offer. But there might be other options as well, that they have. So
because right now there's confusion right now with some of the coaches go, we have to pay an extra to be part of Scaling Up. No, you don't. It's an option.
Yeah, exactly that. I want to be absolutely crystal clear.
Yeah. So you just need like a line or two of what it is. So I'll email that to you.
Okay, good.
Okay. Again, Neil, we knew this coming in. It's 3 years or 4 years in the works, and all of a sudden momentum is coming into a point. And of course, as you just mentioned, scaling up is not going to be ready to execute on this.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is why Andy and I jumped in.
Yeah, no, it's, I think it's exactly the right time. As I was saying to Kristen, it was back in, it wasn't that far away, back in October, that you kind of started worrying whether this is ever going to happen. You know, literally with the next bit of Omicron suddenly comes out again, and you know, will you be able to do anything face to face for another year? You know, we've been literally smoking dope for a while, and then suddenly in November, I think probably with James and getting, you know, a bit of energy in Vancouver, and then Riyadh starting to come on board, and then suddenly people could suddenly see, actually, this is happening now, and then putting that sand, you know, like that often happens, putting a date in the ground. Let's go 7th and 8th of June. Right, this is on now, and then the flywheel has just started to literally gather momentum, and we know what happens when a flywheel starts gathering momentum. You know, it's all sorts of things can happen. Hopefully, mostly positive. But as I was saying to the guys on the call a few minutes ago, bit like the conversation that, you know, we had for the two of you about wanting to have a region, or, you know, what happens when two coaches want New York or want to be part of it. What's the rules there? And you think, well, actually, really haven't thought all of that through yet. But it has latterly been first come, first served. So there will all be all sorts of different things that will kind of, why didn't you think about that? Well, because the pace that we've suddenly gone at means that, you know, that wasn't a consideration at the time. So, but I'd rather now have the flywheel get momentum than stuck.
Absolutely, yeah.
With
These are. Maybe we can find a scaling up coach to help through the process. I don't know. But that's you know, I was just talking to a client this morning, and it's a good problem to have. Like,
definitely, yeah. And again, thanks for your help in stepping up here. Again, it's the bit of the stuck that I was thinking about is, and you get the coaches like Mike Fenner who are on it, and you're saying, well, exactly what's your marketing, Neil? And so we've got a bit. We've got a website, we can do landing pages. Yeah, but what is your marketing? And so, you know, as often happens, you know, there's something comes out comes out as an opportunity. So let's hope it works out. I think we're now, and that's the power of the community. We're pretty much just, as I said, with Mark and Bill, just let's quickly work up some key questions for you know, an application form. Right, quickly get that in, get it into the system, have a quick chat about it. It doesn't need to be perfect, but we can move at that, and you know, quickly update the agreement so that can be done quickly. Let's say we just go at pace. So.
And we have to manage expectations of coaches, because right now when Vern goes out, it's very non-contained, and they say, well, it's part of the program. It's not part of the program.
100%. And that's why, as you saw a few weeks ago, you know, I had to just be a bit sort of firm with Vern and just about you can't just throw people in without it being thought through. It's just, well, you could do, but actually it's opening up a recipe for all sorts of worms to crawl out of. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just as I get to know Vern now, he's doing things in the right way. But the last thing I ever want to do is become politics or anything like that at all. I'm not in that for any way, shape, form. That's why hopefully you find.
Neither do I. I mean, I've been there too many times down around road with Vern. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And I was not intentioning to be there. I was pulled in.
Yeah. Definitely.
Anyway, so yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
We had some really frosty comments around about September, October time, which I had to say to him, look, actually, I'm not employed of yours. And I
had a good coach. You had a good coach, Dean.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, because the way my character is, he knew that sometimes we cross the line. Yeah, and you sometimes have to have a quite robust thing back about what my role is, what the expectations are, and that. So hopefully that sometimes, and it's then good. It's clearly for a bit, and
the word is a bit. No, it's a repeating pattern that you get.
Yeah.
So you have to.
Yeah, and also. Like Vern, when if you do disc profiling, when he's under pressure, we all revert back to type, and he was definitely reverting back to type, high D mode.
Yep.
Definitely wanted to get everything done like now in a nanosecond. Can you get this back to me in 5 minutes? No, I'm coaching today.
Yeah.
Anyway, good. Anything else?
Okay.
So what's the action items? You will contact?
I'll
Carolyn?
contact Carolyn. You guys to just drop a couple of lines for the agreement and the investment, and I'll make sure I'll send you a copy back, but I'll just make sure it's very, very clear. This is optional. But if you feel that marketing is not your competence, this is a pretty good thing to get involved in, I would suggest. Then I think we just need to agree the running order for Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. I just put it out there. I'll give him pretty much the whole session over to it. But I think first up, on Monday, we'll just do a quick debrief from the webinar. And what are the sort of numbers that we had back from the webinar? I've just got the spreadsheet back from the attendees from Rebecca.
How many people attended? How many people attended?
It looks like 150 odd.
That's it?
But I would imagine there's probably 22 coaches. And yeah, there's so if there's 100 businesses, I'd say I've literally just opened it, so we'll do that. So we'll do that, and then straight into your bit, and then over to you guys.
Yeah,
So
we're not going to need a whole. I don't think we're going to need a whole lot, because I'm expecting we're just going to present it as a program, because not all coaches are interested in it, and just let them know that. And Don, we can circle up, but I think we just set a time and just say, for those of you who are interested, we're going to do, we'll follow up, and when you send out the email, we can reply to that and send out the one pager. If you're interested, let us know. We'll sign up. And my plan was at some point next week, hopefully, those who are interested will onboard everyone in one Zoom call.
Yeah, I think so. I think literally if it's 10 minutes and just like you took me through.
And I think that's all we need is like 10 minutes.
Well, the call is only half an hour. So if we just got 5 or 6 minutes, just good news, a quick check-in, and then debrief from the webinar, and then over to you, and then quick opportunity for questions. And then for you to say, well, the next steps are we're going to run a webinar with more depth, and please sign up here. Seems to make sense. And then I think we'll obviously have questions around next steps, for that whole piece. I think there might be, I just need to have a chat with Caroline or Christian about that clarity of what happens when people sign up. It does go to the coach and all those things. So
well, if you send through the questions, I'll reply back to and just with Carolyn, just some direction, so on there. Cool. Get and ask for some confirmation, and we'll get the one-liner over to you.
Yeah, excellent. Well, UK time, it is now gin and tonic o'clock.
I got a call with my book publisher in 10 minutes, so I got to hop off here.
Don, I think we're talking here in half an hour, aren't we?
Yeah, after that, well, you and I. Okay.
Well done, guys.
All right,
let's get this done.
See you Monday.
Take care.
Thanks.
Take care.
See you in a half hour or so.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.